Something that's always been near and dear to my heart is Power Rangers. I've grown to watch almost every season, excluding a few I never had much of an interest in. I mean, I'm not one of those guys who praises it in high regard as a great show or overanalyzes it the same way YouTube critics overanalyze modern SpongeBob, but I can't deny I'm a pretty big fan. In fact, my first Christmas video on this channel was a Power Rangers straight-to-video Christmas special. And if you've seen the video, you might remember that I said I would review the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie in anticipation for the 2017 reboot. And I did do it, but you can't watch it anymore. I uploaded it on March 23rd, 2017, one day after the release of the reboot. But I eventually privated it because I wasn't fully satisfied with the way it turned out. I did it all within a short amount of time and there was a lot I wanted to say but I forgot to put in. I think it was more so the fact that some popular YouTube critics were reviewing the movie, but none of them seemed as big a fan of Power Rangers as I am, so it was a rushed project, but one I can hope to correct. And I'm not lying to you guys. I've written a review for this movie about 6 times in the last 2 years I've been doing this channel, and not once have I been fully satisfied. But now that I've grown a little accustomed to reviewing movies and seem to have found my own style, I feel ready to talk about it. Not to mention the timing is perfect considering Shout Factory just released a Blu-ray for this movie in one of their box sets, and it's given me even more to talk about. And also because it's the 25th anniversary special, and that's something I clearly forgot to put in the script, and I just wanted to do it before the year's up, so yeah, let's do it. Something important to note that separates this film from the first 2 seasons of the show is that it's the first Power Rangers project to not rely on Sentai footage, which means that this is the first time Power Rangers hasn't had to rely on footage from the original Japanese show it's based on, Super Sentai, more specifically the 17th season, Zyuranger, and the 18th season, Dairanger. As the first season mainly took the Ranger's suit and Zord battles from Zyuranger, and the second season took elements from Dairanger with the Thunder Zords and White Ranger. And along with this movie and the third season of Mighty Morphin to take elements from Kaku Ranger with the Ninja Powers and Ninja Zords. And every season preceding would continue this pattern. And this movie is unique in a sense for that reason. The plot follows the Rangers having their powers destroyed after an evil being called Ivan Ooze is unleashed from the Earth and destroys the command center. All for the sake of
take over the world!
Since the Rangers are without the powers, not to mention Zordon is on his deathbed, their last hope is to find an ancient power on a distant planet, retrieve it, and save the world. Basic Power Rangers formula. Now let me just say, this movie is a major guilty pleasure for my brother and I. We probably watch it at least once a year, and each year we find something else to admire or laugh at, depending on how we're watching it, whether it's VHS, DVD, or Blu-ray, or even HBO or Stars. Again, this isn't really a good movie, far from it, but I love it for no other reason than I'm a fan of the show and I watched it countless times as a child. But it is unbelievably cheesy and stupid, especially with all of its terrible puns and one-liners.
Play kick the can?
Kiss the makeup!
Let me get the door! Use, you lose.
Damn!
Yo, Fossilhead! I've got a bone to pick with you!
Ever play leapfrog? What is this? Pick on the frog day? Elevator going up? Elevator going down. Talk about a splitting headache.
Let's rock his world.
I'm drawing the line at let's rock his world. Like, my god, these are too much. Even with all the Power Rangers I've seen over the years. There's a whole lot to admire about this movie in the eyes of a fan, but there's also a lot I'm going to be complaining about or just going over for the sake of continuity or just to go over. So please excuse me if I beat this movie off to death because there's going to be some serious nerdy shit going on here. And there's going to be a whole lot to talk about that's not going to seem consecutive, but just if you're fine with that and if you know this movie, let's just go through it. But let's start off on a good note with the suits, because they made them look so awesome. The style here makes them look both slick and tactical at the same time, and it only makes me wish they looked like that throughout the rest of the show. I especially love how they put the power coins on their chests, making them look just as cool. They have too big a budget to go with the spandex, but then again, that'll come to bite them in the ass when the third act comes into place. I'll get to that soon though. I also love their new ninja suits. Along the way on their journey, they come across a master warrior named Dulcia who bestows upon them the power of ninjetti, which isn't really explained what it is, but the film presents it as inner strength and the power of the mind. Along with that comes with the ninjetti suits, which have really awesome designs, looking primitive with still a modern look. And they have new power coins on the front of them too, conveniently similar to the ones on their old suits, but it's Power Rangers, I'm not gonna complain. Even though that's really the point of this whole video, but I'm not gonna be complaining about power coins this whole time, except for there's one scene in the movie where Aisha actually her power coin actually falls off her suit. So, hey, that is something funny to look at if you watch it again. And you're gonna see more of that here too. I'm going off script too much. And since you can see part of the Rangers' faces in those suits, that means you can actually see them fight naturally without all those flips and kicks. But what never made sense to me about the Gatekeeper fight in this movie is that they use their physical capabilities to win, except Tommy nails the finishing blow by doing this.
Ninja corkscrew kick. Eight ball, quarter pocket.
A lot of the coolness of the fight was taken out by Tommy doing this Matrix-like shit and landing the finishing blow, and the movie went in a really good direction when they got in these suits because all the physical fights they have to face without their powers. I mean, yeah, they were getting their asses handed to them when Ivan sent out his Tengu warriors, which is weird for a guy made out of ooze to conjure up from spitting out, but just go with it. But they start using their physical prowess and minds against the skeleton dinosaur and the Gatekeepers, both two of the best fight sequences in the movie. And you know, this graveyard where they find that dinosaur could be a fitting metaphor for the Rangers losing their powers, but I don't expect the guys to go too deep for Power Rangers. Also, check out this mistake they left out of the theatrical cut on DVD. Hey, look out, you almost hit the stagehand, you idiot! Sucks the Blu-ray cut this bit out, but I'll never forget it as long as I live. Getting back to the regular movie suits, I give props to the people working in those suits because each weighed at least about 40 pounds, and working in that constraint for 10 hours a day is enough to make someone go nuts. Imagine how much time it would take just to scratch something, like jeez. The fight sequences in the suits are cool too, but sadly they're my least favorite due to the fact that some of the editing gets real annoying with how much it slows down and picks up again or just repeats clips. I have the same problem in fight sequences from later episodes of the show, mainly during the Disney era. How ironic that one of my least favorite elements of this Power Rangers movie are the Power Rangers themselves. Not only are the suits different from the show, but they added new power-ups that were never shown in the show prior to this movie, which is a little inconsistent, but a majority of them are cool and I do wish they were used in the show, whether it's the second or third season. But some were better kept out, like the Stega Stinger. Watch this scene and ask yourself, is this really worth using in combat?
That does it.
Stega Stinger.
Did you miss me?
That is literally the one time you would ever need to use something as stupid as that. Since we're on the topic, I want to go over the first fight sequence when they fight Ivan's Oozman. Yeah, I know, I'm going backwards. It's very non-consecutive, but please just go with me here. This is the best way I can explain all this shit at once. The show is used to having a lot of whoosh and punch sound effects in their fights, and that's also replicated here, but they also threw in some stupid fart sound effects. Like, is that necessary for this movie that is trying to be bigger and better by making the fights look even cornier than they did in the show? That's like if they added cartoon sound effects to the fight sequences in The Matrix.
Hello, Ed boys. Many doors yet?
Speaking of bigger and better, that is everything this movie is trying to be. Literally everything about this movie is different from the show in some good ways and others terrible. On the one hand, the suits are improved by a lot, and the cinematography actually makes the film look less low budget than the show was. But on the other hand, a lot of the CGI effects in this movie are so bad, you can really appreciate the guys in rubber suits from the show, or Sentai footage. A lot of the effects here look way too waxy, and this especially comes as a problem in the previously mentioned third act where the Rangers summon their new Zords. To put it nicely, they all look like artificially colored tinfoil. Even as a kid I knew these were bad. Like, I get it they had a decent sized budget, but is this the best they could pull off? I'm not asking for much since it's Power Rangers, but this is just terrible. In fact, I got bored one late night and bought a children's book adaptation of this movie, and looking into it, found out they didn't use stills from the movie to show the Zord, but just stills from the Sentai stock footage which would later be used in Season 3. Like, they knew it was bad, and they tried to make fans forget it even happened. But little do they know, a fan base will never forget. Also, if you want to see the ultimate climax of the movie and how they solve the problem with their new ninjetti powers, take a glance at this scene.
Desperate times call for desperate measures. What are you doing? Taking care of business.
So, the Ninja Megazord has just as much power as their Thunder Zord, but it also has a last resort nutshot button. Hell, I'm down for it. If Ivan Ooze is grabbing you, throw a Sonic Says in there for all I care.
Kids, there's nothing more cool than being hugged by someone you like. But if someone tries to touch you in a place or in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's no good. So what do? First, you say no. Then,
you go all Bobby Hill on his ass.
that's my purse! I don't know you!
And if those effects didn't piss off the fans enough, it gets worse with the fact that Bulk and Skull are barely in this movie. I swear, they practically get only 5 minutes of screen time in this 95-minute movie. And by this point in the series, they were the second main characters and actually started to prove themselves as real characters and not just bullies. So imagine the potential they could have used for them in this movie. And if you thought they would have had a bigger role here, your instincts are correct. In the original script for this movie, Bulk and Skull respond to a flyer asking for some quote-unquote brilliant, good-looking assistants, to which Skull responded saying that he was brilliant, and Bulk comments that he was good-looking. They respond to it only to find that Ivan Ooze is a monster, and when they try to back out, they're confronted by Goldar and forced to sell free ooze to kids while they're also being brainwashed by the ooze, and eventually snapped out of Ivan's control when sprayed with water. That would have been great! Are you kidding me? Some great potential for goofy laughs and possible physical comedy from both Bulk and Skull, something they really excel at in the show. And hey, them getting snapped out of the spell with water makes sense when at the end of the final cut, Bulk and Skull help a kid snap some characters out of his spell and turn them back to normal. And I was wondering how the hell these soon-to-be beloved Power Rangers characters were scrapped from this project. And I could have easily looked it up on the internet, and I did, but I wanted someone's take who was actually working on the movie. And guess what? I did. Not too long ago, there was a convention being held in my hometown of Syracuse, New York, and Jason Narvey, best known for playing Skull, would make an appearance. I remember being first in line to ask him about he and Paul Schreier's part in the movie, and this is what he had to say.
You're presupposing we have talent, which we don't, so bless you for that. No, what happened really was there was a tug-of-war going on between Saban and 20th Century Fox on how bad Bulk and Skull were going to be. So we were supposed to be working with Ivan Ooze a lot more closely, and Saban, I think, didn't want that because they wanted to spin us off and all that stuff. So that's what happened there.
So basically what he's saying is 20th Century Fox actually wanted to keep Bulk and Skull in the movie, as the script said, but Saban wanted to push their focus to the side, which makes less sense now that I think about it, because I thought it was the other way around, with Saban wanting them in and 20th Century Fox keeping them out. I get the company was trying to make a bigger and better Power Rangers movie, but why leave out the key characters to the show? One of the final shots of the movie is them telling a story about all that happened, and the camera doesn't even bother to slow down to let them talk. Regular moviegoers probably didn't even know that they were the main side characters. They seemed fine with how they were used in the script, but these two were just too good for this final product. Also, thank you so much to Jason Narvey for the interview. He was such a nice guy and a great sport. But before I get into anything else, I need to delve into the core of what made this movie so watchable in the first place. It's not the suits, not the Rangers, not the action or bigger budget, it's goddamn Ivan Ooze. If there's one and only thing that makes this movie great, it's him. He's portrayed by Paul Freeman, best known for playing Belloc from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he's great in that movie, but I grew to know and love him through his amazing performance as Ivan Ooze. He's considered by many to be the greatest villain in the whole Power Rangers universe, and I would wholeheartedly agree. Well, before Lord Draken came into the mix. Paul Freeman plays this character exactly like you would expect from a children's show, and he gives it 110%. When he needs to look evil, he'll look downright sinister, but when he needs to be anything else, he's charming, goofy, and just fucking hilarious.
You obviously don't know who you're dealing with, Mr. Raisinhead.
Really?
Yeah, we're the Power Rangers.
Woo! Where's my autograph book?
He steals every scene he's in and just being deliciously evil and expressing it in the best way possible.
I think circumstances force us to choose a new leader. And I pick me.
Some scenes with him are actually legitimately funny, even from someone watching who isn't too keen on Power Rangers.
Here comes that cute little pink ranger to the rescue.
Oh, you think she's cute too, huh?
To this day, no 90s family movie villain will come close to Ivan Ooze, even if Tim Curry is high up there with, like, well, everyone. At this point, it only seems fit that I go over to the rest of the characters. Bulk and Skull, like I said, are barely in this movie, but they also take a backseat to this young character named Fred. He's friends with the Rangers and serves as the voice of reason when they're gone. For example, Ivan's evil plan on Earth is to give away his own special concoction of ooze to the kids of Angel Grove, using it against their parents so that the both of them get brainwashed. The kids are tricked into breaking the rules and having carefree fun, and the parents are used to dig up Ivan's Zords called ectomorphicons from the burial site he was dug from. Yeah, thank God all the adults in Angel Grove are parents, or else this plan would completely backfire. And no cops either, but then again, that's not a shock considering that this is Power Rangers. Why have cops or armed forces when you can have teenagers with attitude who really don't have attitude? But Fred seems to be the only one catching on to how suspicious it is for this field days wizard to be giving out free ooze. The kids don't even second guess it, they just go right for it. How is it Fred is the only kid to see past this? Proof that Angel Grove needs as much help as it can get. I mean, come on guys, you can't have an abandoned warehouse district all the fucking time. Plus, Rita, Zed, and Goldar make appearances every now and then, and their costumes are pretty cool. They don't look too much different from the show, but they are given a little more polish. And Zed is even given a more menacing voice.
No need to wake him. In fact, why don't you take a little nap yourself?
And if you look closely, his brain is actually pulsating. That's both gross and awesome. But what's mostly distracting is this pig character in the back named Mordant. He was never a character in the show, he makes his first appearance here, and doesn't even continue into the 3rd season. And there's no Squat and Babu either, but these three act like Mordant was there from the start. My guess is that for the sake of a different audience, they did to Squat and Babu what they did to Bulk and Skull. Cut them out completely with the same intentions. Speaking of disappointment, let's talk about Dulcia. Now, I'm not knocking the actress who plays her, Gabrielle Fitzpatrick. I'm knocking the studio's decision to make the final cut what it is. Fitzpatrick was the original choice for Dulcia, but due to medical issues, she had to be recast and was replaced by Mariska Hargitay, who some of you may recognize as the star of Law & Order SVU, and they reshot practically every scripted scene with her, including ones with her and the Rangers in her home, as she teaches them how to be one with their animal spirits. But considering there was too much talking in those scenes, director Brian Spicer and the studio decided to scrap all those scenes, and instead they got Fitzpatrick back in time and reshot all those scenes, excluding all the talking sequences. I mean, God forbid there's actual development in this movie and kids' attention will be lost for 5 seconds without a punch being thrown. Little things like that make me feel bittersweet about revisiting this film as an adult and a veteran Power Rangers fan. For once, the Power Rangers would have more development than Bulk and Skull have had in the first 6 seasons, and we would have had more backstory about Dulcia and her association with the Ninjetti. She can't even help the Rangers find sleeves. Like, literally, Aisha is the only one with sleeves. Why does no one here have sleeves? Can these guys leave their house without wanting to show off their bods? It's like they work at Abercrombie & Fitch.
Like us.
I mean, I guess you gotta make sacrifices, but sometimes for the wrong reasons. Like how there's no hard rock guitar music here during the fight sequences, but instead Devo, which is fine, but listen to how little it matches the tone of the scene.
Action boy now. Action girl now. It's a
Yeah, that's pretty shit. However, the overall score of this movie is pretty good. It's all very reminiscent of a lot of John Williams pieces like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Hook, the list goes on. And not only that, but the updated version of the original theme made for this movie is completely awesome. I'm not kidding when I say I get hyped for a workout at the gym just by listening to this song. It's my go-to motivator. Plus, that also lets you know how much of a sucker I am for this movie. Not just for the fact that I have countless amounts of Power Rangers merchandise spanning out from toys, clothes, trading cards, books, cups, and DVDs. Just your average fan, I guess. The whole purpose of this journey they're on is to find the power and save Zordon, but it doesn't really make sense. Zordon's chamber has him locked in a time warp, and releasing him from there makes him age rapidly and slowly die away. That sort of thing drives Power Rangers fans up the wall, and I'm not going to delve too much into it because I've already beaten a dead horse with this movie enough, but I promise guys, I'm almost done. The whole thing with his chamber being shattered creates plot holes because, spoiler alert, in the final episode of Power Rangers in Space, Andros shatters Zordon's chamber. Andrew shatters Zordon. That's a tongue twister. Andrew Andros shatters Zordon's chamber, causing his death and defeating the evil in the world. So why doesn't this happen when Ivan destroyed the chamber? It makes no sense. Even worse is how the film is edited. A major plot hole people have with this movie is that the Rangers get their powers and go straight for fighting the Ectomorphicons and Ivan, and only then finding Zordon after he dies, like they couldn't use their time to try to save him first. Well, turns out they did try. In the script and unseen shots and behind the scenes in like what the VHS promos for the Pagemaster or whatever, when Rocky says,
Hang on, Zordon. We're on our way.
they were actually going to see him first, only to find that he's dead and then going to fight Ivan after seeing what he did to him. And I'm also thinking they could have done this a lot sooner if it wasn't for Alpha sending them.
In the wrong direction!
Alpha uses the last of the command center's power to send them to the planet Phaedos where the power is, but he couldn't send them straight to the power or the gateway outside the monolith where the power is located. That was literally the one reason Dulcia couldn't go with them to the monolith, because she would just age rapidly, but they spent all day walking there where they could have just been easily transported there by Alpha. It's like that major plot hole in The Lord of the Rings where those eagles they ride on in the first movie saved them at the end of the third movie, when in reality they could have just flown all the way to Mordor. It's all the fucking eagles' fault, man.
I hate the fucking Eagles, man.
But that doesn't even matter in the lore of the Power Rangers universe, because guess what? This movie isn't even canon. The third season starts up with a completely different story and a smaller budget retelling of what happened in the movie, but with no Ivan, no Uzman, no Dulcia, no nothing. However, it does seem like they tried to give the original script a second chance with this lower budget retelling. Plus it fits the Sentai footage in pretty well, even if their ninjetti suits in the show make them look like a bunch of Klansmen.
White power! White power! White power! White power! Bobby, cut it out!
First off, to those of you who have made it to this point in the video after all my excessive commentary about this Power Rangers movie, you are some of the bravest people I've ever met, trust me. Second of all, this movie really is not good. I can understand if parents or regular critics don't care for it, and in some ways I can see why fans of the show like this movie, but I think a lot of them aren't looking too deep into it like I am and feeling utterly upset with the finished product. I don't dislike this movie for what it is, because for what it is, I can thoroughly enjoy by turning my brain off and enjoying a mindless, bigger budget version of my childhood, which is probably the reason why other people like it so much, but it's more so I'm indifferent over what it's not. Everything that the film could have been and wasn't is disappointing to say the least. Whether this is the fault of Brian Spicer, Saban, or 20th Century Fox, it screwed over the film big time. By the way, 20th Century Fox, I fucking hate you for ruining Narnia, Aragon, The Seeker, and Percy Jackson. I fucking hate you for that shit. So why am I talking about this film? Because it's my #1 most nostalgic film. I've watched this movie countless times, mostly twice a year, and part of me loves it for that reason. And that's why I previously mentioned why I wrote a review for this movie about 6 times, because I wanted to perfect it and show some respect for this movie that I ironically was bashing it for however long this video is. I care about this film and the Rangers working on it too much to hate it. Sure, I'm skeptic about the behind the scenes stuff and all the things about the lore of Power Rangers don't really make sense, but I still love watching it. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be finishing this review because I feel like I would miss something out or something I wanted to talk about, but I just thought it would just be like an overly drawn out video. But I finished it. You know why? My brother, Tyler, who had recently passed away, always pushed me to finishing this video so he can see it. He loved how my first attempt of this video on YouTube turned out, but of course I wasn't happy. So I tried a few more times, and now I feel like I've done my definitive version that he would probably be happy about. And other than my non-consecutive criticisms, I am too. If you guys want to hear my thoughts on the sequel, Turbo Power Rangers movie, or even my more in-depth thoughts on the 2017 reboot, then give me some time and I'll have some for you in the future. But I'm taking a break from Power Rangers after this goes up, so thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time.